Chaps, we've got myself, we've got Steve, and we've got Dennis. Dennis, where are you from again? Because I'm going to get it wrong. I know it's prostate cancer. Go for it.
Yeah, full name, East Suffolk Prostate Cancer Support Group.
Thank you very much. I'll do the whole taggy stuff. But the reason I wanted to do this video is because we have got quite a large following of men and all sorts. But I heard one of your foundation's interviews on BBC Radio Suffolk. I think it was when Wade, doesn't really matter. It was on the radio, and there's a few things where he was saying, yeah, it just blew my mind. But the one thing what blew my mind even more is the thought of when I'm over 50. Thankfully, I'm not there yet. But the thought of when I'm over 50, I'm going to have a doctor chase me around with my pet boxes with my boxes around my knees, wanted to put his finger up my arm. I'm not doing that until I've absolutely 100% necessary. And when basically that's not always the case. And now I'm like, okay, there we go. But
yeah, how and why?
Yeah, no, exactly. Maybe I will go and check. And then I was like, well, maybe when I'm like 55, then I'll go and get the check. Yeah. And then I'm finding that actually younger people can actually get it and all sorts.
Certainly can.
So I thought we could do two things. We can educate a few people who might be in the same mindset of like only old people will get it, blah, 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 blah. I'm going to read this little list. I know we spoke about it a minute ago, little list here about prostate cancer. And I will say before I crack on, people are thinking, why are you talking about prostate cancer on a mental health charity page? You ask anybody about who's had cancer, the impact it has on your mental health. There we go. I've had a tumor in my neck as well, and it's fucking horrendous. The stress is absolutely horrendous. Not just on me, because I don't want to speak for you guys as well, but on the family and everybody around them as well. So we're like, do you know what? Let's use this to our advantage. If we can try and get one man tested, one man to save their life, whatever else, educate, then happy days. I think it all works. So let me just before waffle on to apologize. Let me just read this list. I'll do it in one sweep, and then David, I'll let you just chip in if that's all right.
Dennis, even.
Dennis, I don't know why I said that. Well. David was the other guy, wasn't it? So I apologise. Yeah. There we go. So right, okay. Myth number one: only old men can get it. Myth number two: no symptoms, no problem. I did think that myself. It's a death sentence. Sexual activity increases risks. Probably sure women probably come up with that one. Only men only men with a family history, only men with a family history get it. To be honest, I thought that just with most cancers, if I'm honest with you, maybe I'm naive. Diet doesn't matter. Testing is unreliable. I've seen a lot of comments on that, hell of a lot of comments, which isn't helpful. And all prostate cancer requires immediate treatment. The floor is yours, David. Dennis.
That's a lot to deal with him. Just go through those points very quickly, and then Dennis can say yes, that is a myth, or that's rubbish.
Yeah, we should have done that in the start, shouldn't we?
Yeah, do that.
Yeah, so the main one here is, and this is one I've fallen for, only old men can get it.
Yeah, that's definitely not true. I think the most you become most likely to be suffering from it between about 50 and 70, or 45 and 75, let's say. So as soon as you're over 40, you should really be testing on a regular basis, and that might be once every 5 years at 40, let's say. And the NHS is obliged to give people, I think it's over 45, a test, and the test is called a PSA test, and it doesn't involve a finger. It's a simple blood test, just a prick of blood out of they take a small blood sample, take it away to the hospital and test it there, and within a few days you get the results from it. So it's as simple as that. With regard to the finger, there's about 50% of men over 65 will develop an enlarged prostate. It's something that comes with age.
Right. Okay.
And if it's an enlarged prostate, then that's most easily detected with the finger, with a digital examination. If if you have a PSA test and it's positive, for want of a better word, or it requires
High,
further
yeah.
investigation, then that whatever comes of the examination and the investigation afterwards, they might use a digital examination to find out whether it is enlarged.
Yeah.
And enlargement is not prostate cancer. It's simply an enlarged prostate. It can have problems in interfering with urine flow and things like that at some times. So it's something that might have to be kept an eye on, and certainly would be. But on its own, it's not prostate cancer as such.
Okay, so Dennis, would it be fair to say then that the finger up the bum routine, we know that sorts out an enlarged prostate?
Yeah.
So that's fine going for that test. Is it then at that stage then that you would take a blood test which checks your PSA? So the enlarged prostate might be an indicator.
Yeah, you take your PSA test first. Do the blood test first. And then,
okay.
And then from that, they will decide how to investigate from there. They might say it's within you get a score from your PSA test, and they might say they quite often deal with it as a traffic light. So you come out either green, amber, or red. If it's green, they'll say have another test in either 3 years or 5 years, depending on age, depending on whether you're in an at-risk group, which we'll come back to in a minute. And if you're at amber, then it may be that your score is a bit higher, but it could be because you've been involved in sexual activity very recently, or you've been riding a bike a lot recently, and they might say have another test in 3 months' time, and it may be that the score is a lot lower that time, and you go back onto green, or it may be that it stays high, in which case you'd move on to the red. And the red would be where there is a high score, and that suggests that about 1 in 4 people who get a high score may have prostate cancer. So at that point, then they'd be looking to do further investigations.
So that surely ties into where people get it wrong. That ties into number 4. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, number 4, which is sexual activity increases risk. And then also number 7, which is testing is unreliable. Are they not kind of linked?
They are linked, yeah. I mean,
but wrongly.
Yes, yeah, I see where you're coming from, though.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, if you've been riding your bike, if you've just done a really long bike ride the day before you have your test, then the score is likely to be higher. Similarly, if you've been engaged in sexual activity immediately before the test, your score is likely to be higher. So yes, that is one thing that could affect the test result. So it doesn't mean the test is unreliable. It's just a symptom of what is happening there. That high score is not a constant reading, as it were. So you'd want to do it again or avoid those activities immediately before you go to have your test.
Yeah.
But that's something that needs to be made clear. In our group, along with another men's charity called CHAPS, CHAPS, organises testing sessions, which anyone can go along to for a donation. CHAPS actually organised the testing session, and we help them with the advertising and getting people involved. And in fact, I think the article on Radio Suffolk was probably about. We've got one coming up next week at Hadley Football Club on the 4th of October in the evening, and the space is available. People can book a space and go and have a PSA test, and it will be analysed, and you'll be told before you have the test. A urologist will be there, and he'll talk through all about the test, what it is, what it shows, what the results will show, and what would progress from that afterwards. So if there's anyone who is concerned and they can't get a test from there, or they haven't got a test from their GP, then that one is available. You go onto the CHAPS website, chaps.uk, .com, I think it is,
Yeah,
and you can book it on there.
We'll do all the taggy stuff anyway, and
Yeah.
help with that awareness.
Yeah.
Really. So what about myth number 2? And I think this one is dangerous, but I don't think it's prostate. I think it's just any cancer. I think no symptoms, no problem.
No, definitely not true, that one. If you've got prostate cancer, you don't necessarily show any symptoms. It's very slow growing, and the symptoms only really start to show when it becomes more advanced and is breaking out of the prostate, by which time it's probably too late to it's not too late for you, but it's too late for simple treatments. The earlier you can get it, the easier, the better chance you've got of survival and and it can be treated more actively and quickly. So yeah, if you're showing, I mean, there are symptoms that come from prostate cancer, things like when you're passing water, it might be uninterrupted flow, or it might be painful, or it might become more frequent. You need to keep going to the loo. It's often linked with erectile dysfunction as well. People go to the GP with erectile dysfunction, and actually it's prostate cancer that they come away with. And it can be lower back pain and hip pain and things can be an issue. And that can be because when it breaks out of the prostate, the cancer can go into the bones. That's probably the first place it does go into. And so that can be an issue. But by that time,
that's a big issue.
You've missed out on a lot of early opportunities to treat it and stop it.
Well, I think that's the bit what moves on to myth 3 is it's a death sentence, isn't it? And
Yeah.
I don't want to sound like a dick, but if you don't get tested early and it escalates into the bones, I've no idea what I'm talking. Only what I've learned from you. If it gets into your bones, that's just get tested before.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the message from this is get tested. Have a test. Once you're over 40, start having tests.
Yeah.
In the UK, about 50,000 men are diagnosed with prostate cancer every year, and about 12,000 men die from prostate cancer every year, specifically from the prostate cancer. And I suppose another figure, about 1 in 8 of us, 1 in 8 men will get prostate cancer at some time during their life. So it's there and it's about. But the earlier it's diagnosed, the better the chances of treatment.
P-delivery, lovely job.
There you go.
Doesn't get much better than that.
Absolutely.
So out of those 12,000, do you think most of those could have been avoided purely for testing quicker? I don't want to pass by. I don't mean that if that sounded like
that. I mean, I can't speak to those.
No, that's a big supposition, isn't it?
Yeah, but the early, I mean, you've probably heard of Bill Turnbull. He used to be on the BBC. He lived over in Bury. I mean, he was a classic person who just ignored it until he was in his mid to late 60s, and by which time it was too late when he did go to the doctors, and unfortunately he didn't survive it. But he had a good battle with it, but he didn't survive. But that was something that was left, and if he'd gone sooner, who knows? Yeah,
absolutely. Because I vaguely remember that story, and he was quite vocal about that. I think he said, "I wish I got tested early."
Yeah, he did.
I'm sure he did say that, didn't he? Quite vocal about that, and stuff like that. And yeah, again, I think I had some in my therapist. Actually, I therapy because obviously of all this kind of stuff. And I said to my therapist, I joked about it, and I went, I'd sooner die than let a doctor put up my ass. I know that sound. I know after. I didn't mean that how it sounds, but after, and then when I'm reading messages about it and all this kind of, and other people think, and this is why I think conversations like this just break those myths.
Yeah, it's really important.
Yeah,
it really is, isn't it? And this is why even like I think I said in a video ages ago about encouraging getting men to getting men to literally drag their missus to get a smear test or breast cancer or
Mammogram.
That's the word I'm looking for, and all
Yep.
this stuff. And I stand strong by this. I remember the fear when I had my tumor. And I know, Dennis, you said you've had cancer yourself, prostate cancer, I presume.
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't want to trigger you or
No,
thing.
no.
But it took a toll on my mental health. It really did. Of just for months thinking I was going to die and all of this kind of. It was horrendous.
Yeah, I think one of the descriptions that a friend of mine said is that when you have the various tests and things, and it becomes apparent that something's wrong, and you go for the consultation where the doctor says you've got prostate cancer. And from that moment, well, firstly, you don't hear the rest of what he says because your mind is all over the place. So it's always better to take someone with you to that consultation, because they can at least write it down or something, because you won't hear it.
Yeah.
But you come away from that consultation, and as you walk out the door, this big black dog follows you out. And wherever you go, that big black dog is with you, and it's following you around wherever you go. It's with you when you go to bed, it's with you when you wake up, it's always there. And it just takes over your life. Your mind is always going to it. When I was diagnosed, he said it's advanced, but it's treatable. And he said you can have radiotherapy, you can have hormone treatment, or you can have surgery. But of course, I then wanted him to say, you're the doctor, tell me which one of those three to go for, and he wouldn't. It was for me to go away and read the pile of literature he'd given me and make a decision. So
well, they have different repercussions over time, all of those. I mean, I've got a couple of mates that one of them's had prostate cancer for probably 20 years. He's now in his mid-70s. I mean, he's still riding motorbikes and doing all the stuff that he used to do, but he's managed it. But he had surgery and radiotherapy and the hormone Casodex, I think he was on, which gave him quite a nice pair of 36Cs. But you know, but it just kills all the kind of testosterone off and the stuff that's meant to trigger it. I mean, mentally, he hasn't dealt with it terribly well at times, generally during the winter, because he can't get out and ride his bikes and bits and pieces like that. You know, summer he seems to be better, but he's managed it incredibly well. You know, I think in all, you know, and now he has like a little I think because his PSA started going up again a couple of years back, he's starting to have like an implant or something in his stomach.
Right.
I think, which he has every 3 months or something. Right. But you know, it's it can hit you really hard, and it's thinking about the future.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, that's the bit I think which actually kind of probably tucks you up more than anything else. I mean, the radiotherapy was awful for him. I mean, that was like 6 weeks every single day, and you know, by week 4 he was absolutely on his knees. You know, trying to get out to the car and, you know, to drive to the hospital, and just on his knees on the way back, and just so tired.
And it affects everyone in different ways, doesn't it? It
does, but mentally that's got to screw with you.
It does.
However, you know, however strong, weak, you know, however you're wired up, you know, however you want to, you know, describe it. That's got to mess with you.
It does. I mean, as I say, I was left with this choice, and as you start investigating it, all you read about are the symptoms and the side effects and everything else, and you think, I don't want that, I don't want that, I don't want the other. And I was getting myself into quite a deep well trying to sort this out. And I spoke to someone from the group that I'm now a member of, the support group. And after the conversation I had with them, it had changed my way of thinking, in that I thought, rather than thinking about what's going to happen to me now, I'm starting to think, well, let's think where I want to be in 6 months' time. What do I want to do in 6 months' time? And which of these options is going to be best for me to get me to where I want to be and what I want to do in the future? Trying to think toward it a little bit. And I opted for surgery, and I had an experience with Adam Brooks, and a robot called Debunking did the job with a surgeon driving it, and it was quite a long operation. But having said that, I was out by, I think, 6 in the afternoon, and I came out of the theatre and was back on the ward. By the next day, I was out and on my way home.
Wow.
They said, you've got to do 25 laps of the ward, and I had all these pipes and tubes and things coming at me. I was walking up and down the ward with this stand with the drip on it or whatever,
Yeah.
determined I was going to get out the next afternoon. And
Yeah.
I went home.
Yeah.
And biggest problem was I had to inject myself every day in the stomach. My wife's totally allergic to needles, so there was no way she was going to do it. But she put the word out in the street, and apparently there were several women who were queuing up to come and inflict this pain. Fortunately, I managed to do it myself. But anyway, that all went well. Problems recovering with incontinence and all that sort of stuff. But I got through it, got better, did the exercises, and everything was good for a few years. And it's only this last couple of years where the PSA has started creeping up again, as same as your friend Steve. And I'm looking forward to the radiotherapy treatment in the new year, and I'm on the hormones at the moment, so hopefully that will get things back down to where we were after the surgery.
Yeah.
But again, I'm trying to think beyond that. Okay, I didn't want to do this, but I've got to get through it to get to where I want to be.
So I think it all goes. It's that myth for I keep looking at it, it's a death sentence. It's clearly not.
No, it's not. I mean, a lot of men die with prostate cancer, but not from it. So it's something that I will have it, I'm sure, but it's not going to be. I think there'll be other things probably that will take over by the time it comes. Probably my own foolhardiness, but going back to one of the other things, I think one of the other myths you mentioned was about it's only if it's in the family, something like that.
Yeah. So where are we? Yeah, it was only men with a family history get it.
Okay, well that's an interesting one, because I mentioned with the green amber red results. One of the criteria they'll look at with your PSA score after a test is whether you're in an at-risk group. Now, if your father or brother or a grandfather or whatever has had prostate cancer, then yes, you would be more likely to develop it. So there is a genetic aspect
link,
to developing prostate cancer, and especially if you're as a father, you've got prostate cancer, then you want to tell your sons to get tested as soon as possible. It can show itself before 40, and so that's something that is, you would be at risk of that. If you're Afro-Caribbean, or you're of Afro-Caribbean descent, then again you're more likely to develop it. So that's another at-risk group. And if you're over 50 when you get your score, and your score is over 2, then they'd probably be saying, yeah, you need to be tested a bit more quickly. I tested again more quickly. For 5 years, we'll do it in a year or something. So there are groups that are more at risk, but it's not just because it's been in that group. Anyone can develop it. To the best of my knowledge, none of my family, certainly not the dad, had it diagnosed at the point when he died.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. So I think all of those myths there are pretty done. So let me just quickly blow through them. So only old men can get it. We've done that one. No symptoms, no problem. Load of bollocks. It's a death sentence. Well, we've already proven that by a few stories straight away that that's not true at all. Sexual activity increases risks. I think we kind of mixed.
Affects the test result.
Yeah. So I think that one there is thing. Only men with family history have already covered that. Diet doesn't matter. I think that's a load of tosh of any. That's just life, isn't it? Diet does matter with anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any sort of cancer recovery, they'll talk about having a healthy diet. Just goes without saying.
No, exactly that. Testing is unreliable, which we've covered that one and wiped the floor with that. Total rubbish. And all prostate cancer requires immediate treatment. Did we cover that one?
We touched on
Well,
it.
I suppose we kind of did. From what Dennis was saying, it kind of depends on your score.
Yeah, depends on your score and what sort of treatment. So you might remain under constant surveillance. So you're regularly testing every 6 months, or every 3 months, or whatever. So you're not actually being treated as such, but you are being watched to see what will happen. You might some treatments are more invasive than others. So obviously the surgery is a invasive. It's a general anaesthetic and all the rest of it. Radiotherapy is over only about 33 days, but it's intensive, or it's going every working day, and the side effects from that happen afterwards. So it takes a while to get over it afterwards. Hormone therapy is a tablet, and there may be side effects from it. Different people react in different ways to the hormones, depending what the hormones are that they're using. But as Steve described earlier, it can be a big reaction to it, or it can be relatively small and minor. I've not had any terrific reaction to the hormones since I've been taking them. Perhaps a bit more fatigue than usual, but nothing major.
So
At the end of the day, I think I'd rather have boobs than die.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the bottom line, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly that. So in a nutshell, so even if you were diagnosed with I guess any cancer, let's keep it with prostate, your life won't stop.
No, there's no reason for it to stop. I mean, I was well into my cycling at the time when I was diagnosed, and so my sort of goal was to get back on the bike. And the surgeon who was doing the job said, "Well, it'll be a while, it'll be about 8 weeks after your operation, and you'll be able to ride a horse." I thought, well, that's good because I couldn't ride one before. But but yeah, I think I had my surgery in September, and I think it was about 2 months. Yeah, it was about 8 weeks, and I was back on the bike for short rides. And I think after 3 months, yeah, I think it's about 3 months, I did my first 100-kilometer ride afterwards. So and I just focused on the recovery and got the goal to go for. And it's, I mean, I'm sure we've all had it said to us about target setting. You set small targets. Just say, this week I'm going to get on the bike and I'm just going to go around the block. Well, immediately after the surgery, it was go for a walk, and it was walk down the path and back to start with, and then down to the end of the road and back, round the block, and gradually build the walking up. And that didn't mean no end of good. And then same back on the bike. Well, I'll just go round the block, and then I'll go a bit further and gradually build up from there. So it's target setting.
Yeah, absolutely. That was a great call. I really hope this video just educates somebody, really, because I think after googling them myths and all this kind of stuff, it's just a matter of people what believe that. I don't want to say rubbish because it undermines it, isn't it? This is the problem. What happens with Chinese whispers and stuff like that. So thank you very much. I'll do the whole taggy stuff and whatever else. But sure, I think we're done on this video, aren't we, for the moment?
Well,
yeah, sounds good. Yeah,
it's really good. I mean, I mentioned the testing session we've got next week at Hadley. That's with an organisation called CHAPS, which is a men's health charity set up by a retired urologist, and he wanted to sort of highlight the fact that 12,000 men a year die from prostate cancer. That's more men dying from prostate cancer than women from breast cancer. And yet there's no screening program. And what he's campaigning for is to have a screening program. And at the moment, the best test we've got is the PSA test. It might not be perfect, but it's the best we've got. It can give an indication. there's a lot of GPs that are not on board with it, because in the past they will say it's provided a lot of false positives. It suggested people have got prostate cancer when they haven't, and that's in terms of the NHS, it means they've got to go on to further investigation, so that's costing more, it's taking time and all the rest of it. Personally, I think if you investigate it further and find it was a false result, then I'd sooner do that than miss out on someone who has got it. And you never know.
Yeah, it's kind of it's what happens up here in the meantime, isn't it?
Yeah,
Really,
exactly.
that's the only thing.
Yeah.
But
when I had it, when I was in that point, I had my PSA test, I had it repeated, and then I went for a biopsy, and then they went on from there. Well, they've changed the order of things now, in that you have your test, you repeat your test, and if it's high, if it looks like it's serious, the next thing they'll do is an MRI scan.
Yeah.
Which I didn't do that until after I'd been diagnosed. That now
Yeah.
they'll use it as a means to assist with diagnosis, and so
Yeah.
the testing, the procedure after your PSA test is a lot tighter now, a lot more. So that idea of it not being reliable, they're getting much more reliable. But of course it is expensive, and it does take time, and there aren't that many MRIs around. You've got to book them in and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll tag all of this anyway, Dan. But
Yeah, no, I will do,
but
yeah,
I've just looked up the CHAPS website, which is chaps.uk.com.
Yeah.
And they've got an events page where they've got loads of
Yeah.
events.
Yeah,
Where
Hadley wants next on the list, isn't it?
yes, Wednesday the 4th of October, 6 till 8:30, Hadley United Football Club.
Yeah, and there's a button
So,
there. Press that to book it.
Yep. Yeah, but they've got two the week after that, another one the week after that, another one the week after that,
Yeah,
two the week after that. So they're on it.
Yeah,
They're really on it.
No,
Yeah.
good on all of you for doing it, really. Absolutely. Let me hit that unrecord button, because one of those watches keep going and going and going. Let me do